On this week's episode of the SP Mamas podcast, I get to talk to Nelly Perin, and she shares about the birth of her oldest daughter and her struggles with breastfeeding, postpartum anxiety, and building a connection to her daughter. Nelly is such a bright light in this community, and her energy is just contagious. I can't wait for you to listen. Hi, you guys. Welcome back to the SP Mamas podcast. Today, our guest is Nelly Perin. Welcome, Nelly. I am so excited to have
you. I'm excited to be here, too.
Yay. So, Nelly has been a Street Parking member for about 9 months, and she lives in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. I had to look it up because I wasn't totally sure where it was.
No one knows where that is. But we get forgotten often.
But I've heard so much about that area, that part of the world, and I'm so interested in going. Especially, I would love to go see PEI.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to make a trip.
It's a good one.
Yeah. And Nelly has 3 children. And Nelly, I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to you and let you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and who your kids are.
Okay. Hey, everyone. First of all, what an honor to be doing this. I feel pretty special. I will just put that out there first. Well, I'm Nelly. As you all know, I'm married to my high school sweetheart, and we have 3 children, 7, 3, and 1, and they keep me pretty busy. Work, I was a dental assistant in the last 10 years. This was my last year because I realized that I wanted to kind of switch gears and possibly go back to school in the near future. So for now, I'm a stay-at-home mom until some ducks line up, and then I'll be a student. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. And I did see that you mentioned you're also a small business owner, and I'm particularly interested in your business for the pickler triangles. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So my husband... Absolutely. So my husband went to school. He's a carpenter and a woodworker, and he went to school to be a carpenter. But we've sort of always been interested in doing things in the non-traditional way. We are minimalistic, if you must, I guess. We own what we need and only that. And we care about the environment and the earth. So when he was done carpentry, he went back to school for 2 years. So the last 3 years, I've sort of been single mommying it and just kind of head in the clouds and surviving. But he went to school for 2 years to do sustainable construction management and technology. So kind of learn how to build green and just sort of different with our earth, like being the center. So then we wanted to start this business with natural play, using natural materials, with everyone in mind, where it's sustainable, first of all, no harsh chemicals, non-toxic, and basically just knowing where your product for your child is coming from for play. And it's completely play-based, child-led. They control their gross motor skills, and they control everything. They lead how they play and grow. So it's kind of fun.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Well, I'll have to get the information from you on that, and we can include it in the
Absolutely.
notes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get down to it. Today we're going to focus on the birth of her first daughter, Mayma. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
So Nelly, why don't you start with just a little bit about the your story of preconception, conception, and a little bit about that pregnancy.
So I wanted to focus on my first because it changed me. I mean, when you become a mom, your world completely changes. But I think this pregnancy and birth was a pivotal moment for me. It's helped shape me into who I am today because we went through a lot with that. I mean, my background is of African descent. So I was born in Africa and raised. So there are fairly high expectations. She was a lovely surprise. Um, and at the time, when you have that background, some may understand there's certain expectations set for you being 21 at the time and expecting your first child is not ideally where your parents see you, going. Mm-hmm. So it started pretty rough. And so going through the entire pregnancy, being super young, not really knowing a lot going into it, it was my learning moment. My pregnancy in itself was fairly straightforward, but the emotional toll behind it was pretty heavy. It was my first time experiencing, before I even knew it had a name, postpartum anxiety and depression. It was so bad. And I'm so glad now that it is being talked about more because 7 years ago, it wasn't.
Right.
It was not talked about as much as it is now. I remember being so alone, feeling such loneliness and just miserable. Yeah. Like I had this new child, but I couldn't connect with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just such a disconnect there and the guilt from not being able to connect from your firstborn. Like, this is my child. What's going on? Yeah. Even to breastfeeding, like that was a struggle and not knowing what you're doing and without the support, all of that on a 21-year-old was pretty life-changing.
Oh, gosh, yeah, I can't. It's so intense. So were there signs, were you experiencing some of that? I mean, it sounds like you were, but now looking back on it, can you say that you were experiencing symptoms or signs of anxiety and depression during pregnancy as well?
I think so. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was because there was so much emotional turmoil around it. I just accepted that it was a hard pregnancy. So it was like riding the waves. Just from my background, I remember feeling like a disappointment to my family. So when you're dealing with being pregnant with your first child and being a disappointment to people, that I was depressed basically the whole pregnancy, right? And I think that kind of shifted and continued into my postpartum journey. Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. It's a massive part of your life.
It affected so much of my parenting and my relationship with her because it was so hard that even now I find I am now working super hard as a mom to build that relationship and connect with her because the postpartum journey was so bad. Like the depression was there, the anxiety was there. I couldn't stand to be around myself. Like I was just a whole different person. Yeah. It was like, this is something I have to do, give her. And I will say that I am grateful for each pregnancies that I've had that medically has been just normal, I guess, whatever in that sense of word.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Uncomplicated, maybe.
Uncomplicated. Thank you. That's the word. I am fortunate to be one of the few, knock on my plyo box here, that have uncomplicated pregnancies. So sometimes I feel like I don't get the ability I don't get to complain, if that makes sense. Yeah. I can't complain because I've been blessed with 3 children. Physically, everything's fine, but mentally, emotionally, it's been a ride.
Right.
I think we're frozen here.
Yeah, I've got you. Can you see me? You froze up for just a second, but it's okay now. Oh no.
Yes.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the birth itself. That birth experience.
Okay.
What did that day look like? Did you
I
have anyone with
remember.
you?
So my husband
Okay.
was with me. So it was the night before. We were sort of hanging out, and I remember telling him, okay, I'm going to go down to bed. You know, when you're super pregnant, it takes a solid like 15-20 minutes to find that real comfortable spot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah. And then
talking
you have
about?
to pee and you get up and you lose it.
So I have twisted and turned, and I finally like, okay, this is it. I think this is the spot. I'm going in, going to bed, and all of a sudden I'm like, am I peeing myself? Like, what? What's going on? I think, and nope, it was my water. Like, just as I've gotten comfortable and laid down to go to bed, my water broke. And so I yelled out for my husband, and I said, Tim, you need to come down. I think my water's broken. And he said to me, no, it isn't. He thought I was just trying to get him down to come to bed.
Oh.
I'm like, yes, it did. So anyway, my water broke. I was fairly calm, I like to think, grabbed the shower, called the hospital. They're like, yeah, come on down. We'll check you and go from there. So grabbed a shower, we packed the bag, and I'm a procrastinator. You have to understand, like, it is literally just a superpower. And I'm proud of it. I did not have anything ready. Like, I leave things to the very last minute. So here we are. My water's broken, shower, and I'm finally packing a hospital bag to go. Okay. So we get there and everything's fine. The check, and I think it was about 1 to 2 centimeters. Pretty relaxed. They said, do you want any meds? And I said, I don't know. We're just kind of go with the flow, right? And see what happens. Again, go with the flow. Procrastinator. We don't really plan very much. But I didn't want to put too much planning around it. Like, I wanted to be just this natural experience that happened. One way or the other, we'll accept it as it comes. And I said, no, I'm fine for now. We'll kind of go with the flow and see what happens. Keeping in mind that I generally used to have fairly heavy flows. Like, I was one of those people who, if I had a period, I was on the floor and done for the week. So I was kind of used to, and I have to say, I remember being a child when I used to get my period, my mother telling me always, she said, if you're this bad with your period, what are you going to do when you have a child?
You're like, I don't know. I'll get there when I get there.
And she always told me that my entire teenage years. So this was the moment, right? Like, okay, this is the moment. What am I going to do? So it was fairly okay. I rode the waves, and I remember it had been a few hours, maybe it was 3 or 4 hours, and they came back and checked nothing was happening, right? Like, you're contracting, but not really progressing. They said, do you want to stay and go for walks, or you can leave and come back? I'm like, I'm going for lunch. So my husband and I and his mom, we took off to this local restaurant, and I'm sitting eating, I think it was fish and chips. It's pretty common on this side of the country. And I'm rocking, having contractions, in public, just having my lunch, and everyone will be like, are you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, we're just having a baby, no big deal. So I'll never forget that. It's Saturday in the afternoon, I think it was 2:00 in the afternoon, just having lunch, and everyone's just like, what is going on? Yeah, I'm fine. We're just having a baby, no big deal. Just got to ride in the contractions. I was not leaving there without my lunch finished. Anyway, so eventually we got through lunch, and it was starting to pick up. So I said, okay, maybe we'll go back to the hospital. And I get there, and they're like, nope, you haven't progressed at all. Like, not even, it was, I was starting, at that point, you start to sort of get disappointed almost.
For sure.
And disturbed. And they're like, oh, do you want any meds? No, I'm fine so far. Like, we're going to keep riding the waves. And eventually it started to get intense. And I remember asking to be put in the tub. They asked, do you want to go in the tub? But that was not for me. I don't know how people can can like just sit in a confined space. I learned a few things. I cannot do confined spaces. They offered the gas, and I tried it. It's like, this is no. I felt like I was being suffocated. I couldn't do it. And eventually, it's about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, no progression. They said, okay, so we'll check in with, we may have to induce you. We'll check in with an anesthetologist and see where they're at. But we're low on staff. There was no nurse to sit with you, and he's in surgery. So it was another waiting game, and that was intense. It was coming pretty quickly. I had maybe gotten to about 4 or 5 centimeters, and I said, I need to sleep. I'm exhausted at this point. It had been over like 20 hours. Wow. I was so tired. And they said, we can try a shot of fentanyl, I think. And I think they tried that, and I fell asleep. Finally fell asleep. And I guess I remember waking up, and at this point, my mother was supposed to be there, but she had gone to the States on vacation. I have family in the States. Yeah. And because I wasn't due for another 3 weeks, so we thought she'll go for a couple of weeks. We'll still have time. But that was not the case. So I'm on the phone. I remember waking up thinking, oh man, I have got to go to the bathroom. And my husband says, wow, you've been sleeping. Like, I think I slept for about 2 hours. I have to say, his birthday was the next day, the day that I was supposed to get induced. And it was 11 something. And I remember waking up, oh man, I have to use the bathroom. And they're like, should we call a nurse? And I'm like, why? I just have to go use the bathroom, like really badly. And so the nurse came in. She's like, I said, I just need to go use the bathroom if that's okay. She's like, just give me 1 second. Let me check. And so I'm like, what's going on? So she checks. She goes, your baby is right there. I'm like, what? So of course I'm like panicking, and I'm like, I need my mom. And so someone call my mom. And I'm like, just turn into this child, I guess, who needs her mother to hold her hand. And so my mom's on the phone. They want one person in the room. So my mother-in-law left, and my husband's best friend, they left. And it's like, it's getting real. This is happening. And I'm panicking, and like, she's right there. I can see her. She's coming. Okay, let's do this. So at this point, the only pain medication I've gotten is a shot of fentanyl, like several hours ago. And they're like, get ready to push. Okay, let's do this. They're like, well, she has so much hair. And I asked, and I think that made a big difference, because I said, can I see? And they're like, okay. So they brought a mirror, and they propped it, and I could see. And I think that helped me, kind of empowered me to be able to kind of get her out in about 10 minutes. Yeah. So I think it was 3 or 4 pushes, 10 minutes, and she was out, and she was just so beautiful, all this hair. Oh. But just being able to see what was happening kind of gave me that push.
Yeah, you're like, okay, this is the goal.
Right, because I can see like every push, she comes a little bit further. So, okay, just anyway. So I went for it. She was out in 10 minutes. I remember it was 11:30 on August 24th, but 30 minutes before her dad's birthday.
So funny.
She entered this world, and that was like my entire life changed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing. Yeah. So then, okay, so you're in the hospital. It sounds like physically you're doing okay.
Physically, yeah.
At what point did you start to feel the blues and the anxiety and the depression start to come on? How did that start for you? How did that look?
I always say, like, this 4 hours, 48 hours, I feel like there's like a lull. The nurses are right there helping. So things are great, right? You feel in control. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. The video kind of keeps cutting out, but I can hear you just fine. So I'm not sure what's happening with the video. Okay. I can hear the whole story, and I'm fascinated.
Okay. So I always say after you have a baby, like when you're in the hospital, nothing goes wrong. Like, at least for the most part, people are there helping, and you're like, okay, we got this. It wasn't until we came home, I felt she was nursing okay, things were smooth, right? We get home, and after day one, all of a sudden, this child is crying constantly. Like, is she not getting enough? Is she just like uncomfortable? What am I like? You start to think like, what am I doing wrong? What's going on? Like everything was fine a few hours ago. She was sleeping, happy as can be. Now we're home and everything is not okay. Right? Yeah. So you're trying everything you can. You're crying more than you ever imagined crying, like just about everything. I remember nursing and not feeling like it was enough. Yeah. Like, are you even getting anything? How do I know that you're getting what you need to get?
Yeah.
Oh, everything is just so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be. How do I know you're nursing and latching properly? What if something is wrong with your latch? Why are you crying? And then I remember being in so much pain from nursing and bleeding. And I remember every time I would hear the cry, I started to cry. Like, I got anxious.
Yeah.
Like, why is she hungry again?
Yeah.
Why do I need to sit here and go through nursing her again? Oh no, I have to, like, it just became panic. Every time it was time, like every 2 hours, I now have to relatch. I was in so much pain. I was uncomfortable. I started to resent I resented my child every time she needed to feed. What mother resents their child? That's what I felt at the time. Mm-hmm. As a new mom, a 22-year-old new mom, I felt angry. I felt unsupported. And I felt resentment towards this child who had no idea the world she had been put into. All she wanted was to eat. She was hungry. Yeah. But I don't know how I could have done. Like, how am I supposed to re-put something that is so injured, like purposely keep hurting myself because you need something from me? That went on for about a week or two, and at some point, like I remember getting to a point where she would cry, and I would just sit there, like just look at her. She was crying, I was crying. I am not like I don't want to lift her up because it meant that I was in pain and I was hurting myself, and she, I guess, in this sense, was the cause of it.
Right.
What I know now was it was an awful latch. Breastfeeding is just very hard, and you need a ton of support and love to get through it. Yeah. And so anyway, we ended up switching to formula because she needed to eat, and I needed to be a happy mom.
Yeah.
And so that kind of started our journey where then there was the guilt of now she's getting formula. And it's so great because my husband can feed her, but they're bonding, and I'm still recovering from that resentment towards my child, that disconnect. Yep. And now she's connecting more with her father. And where does that leave me as a mom, right?
Right.
So then they created this bond, and then I just felt like it was a struggle ever since to sort of connect with her. But yeah, I would never wish that on anyone. Yeah. How do you resent a child for being hungry? There needs to be more done.
Well, I think that, it starts with like, I also struggled so incredibly hard with breastfeeding. It was like I got hit by a train, in terms of how surprisingly difficult it was. And honestly, before she was born, someone said like, "Oh, it's easy. It's no problem. I breastfed all my kids and it was a breeze." it'll save you money. Formula's expensive, like all of this stuff. And then when I couldn't do it, even knowing all of the things that I know,
Right.
it was devastating.
You still feel like you failed.
Yeah.
I remember going into it because I could see other people around me doing it. Like, they're doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And no one was talking about how difficult breastfeeding is.
Right.
Right?
And there's so many variables that can make it challenging. It could be, the latch. It could be your supply. It could also just be that, like,
the shape.
Yeah, exactly.
Your nipple.
Exactly. And there's so many factors, and that's the part that's so confusing. I remember taking, like, all these supplements and eating all of these things and, like, doing the placenta pills and, like, all of this.
Fenugreek? Did you try the fenugreek?
I did the fenugreek, and then I learned that fenugreek can actually have an adverse effect. And that sometimes people and that sometimes people don't respond well to the placenta pills. And so I was like, well, am I that person? Yeah, it was so confusing. So because you mentioned some of the, I guess, the guilt and the feelings with your family and your parents, where were they during this time? And did you...
So my mom was here, but because of the culture, it was just something you did, right? Like, sure, it's hard, but, like, you just do it.
Yeah.
And that didn't work, right? She came from where it was hard, you did it. And so her support, she did what she could to support me, but it was more just, put a boob in the mouth, and I'm not sure why it's not working, because that's what women do. Hi, did you want mommy? You come in. See, it's bedtime. Oh, you're so sweet.
Hi. Oh.
Hello.
Hi, Isao.
You feel better now? Breastfeeding, that was the expectations, right? Like, you had a baby, you breastfed them. Yeah. So I felt broken because why can't I do it? Right. Something's obviously wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And people obviously make it seem easy or don't talk about the difficulties you experience breastfeeding. But I definitely learned in that time to my second that it is hard. It doesn't matter even if you've done it before. Yeah. It is, like, don't ever go into it with an easy. Oh, thanks, kid. You're so sweet. What I always tell any new mom who are, what are the pros and cons of breastfeeding? I said, honestly, what I can tell you is never go in with an expectation. Mm-hmm. Like, go with the flow. It can be difficult. It can be there would be a point where it will be easy, I guess, eventually for some. It becomes smooth, but don't expect it to be easy for at least a solid 6 weeks. And I remember every time that she would latch, I'm just going to nurse him if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
I remember what no one told me was the after pains that comes with breastfeeding. Oh, every time that they would latch on, it would be like having a baby all over again. Did you know that?
It was so
because
crazy.
No one told me that.
Oh, right? And I think that's the other thing is, like,
no one told me this at all, and I was so mad.
Yeah. It's a skill. It's something that you have to learn. And that's actually kind of why I was asking about your parents, because it's like, I feel like at some point, I don't know, where do we learn this stuff? Where are we supposed to learn this stuff? About the positions and how to hold and what pain is normal and what pain is not, and different ways to nourish yourself so you can nourish the baby, like all of that. So, that's part of why I think these kinds of conversations are important, so that
I did not know that the best for me to nurse comfortably, I need to hold a new baby in a football hole.
Yeah.
What's a football hole? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
Like I just figure you grab a baby, you hold them and you nurse them because that's what I saw people do. So
right.
why was I having difficulty nursing a baby like this, right? Because
Yeah.
for me, because I'm heavier in the chest, it is more comfortable for me to hold in the football position. But
Right.
you don't know that unless someone tells you. So it's a conversation that I'm so grateful that is being had
Yeah.
more often.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being so honest and open about it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience with you mentioned like parenting and being the parent that either has the connection or the parent that is like the default parent. The like what
Default parenting roles.
right. So tell me a little bit about that.
So my husband is amazing. Like he's incredible, and I'm so grateful for the hands-on parent that he is. But there was always, I mean, some may disagree with me, but I think there was always a default parent that everything falls on, and that can be very emotionally draining. Um, if something is wrong, I'm looked to figure it out, right? Primarily, we wake up. I'm the default parent for this child.
Yeah.
I think we've come a long way as society to change a little bit of that. But I think as women and as mother, we still carry this big load of constantly thinking, is he fed enough? Like, what is the medication that he needs? Do we have this? And it is on you 24/7. And that's very, very difficult. And when you add postpartum anxiety on top of that, it can be a very scary place to be. I've had moments, I remember being pregnant with him, with Azale.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of getting pretty deep and personal, but I remember just standing there doing dishes and just having this visual of just dropping it all. And because I felt so overwhelmed with everything. And that may have just been baby blues. I am getting visuals of just leaving it all and ending it because I'm so overwhelmed with the load and everything that comes with being that primary person that has the care for everyone and everything. It's a lot.
There's no time off. Even if, let's say, they're like, oh, do some self-care. It takes 10 minutes for yourself. Go take a shower, go whatever. There's still no time off. You're still like
No. It's a
thinking about it.
24/7 thing.
Yeah. So
It's 24/7. Even when we nurse all night still.
yeah.
I remember thinking last night, like, what? Like, I don't think this is ever going to end anytime soon. Like, he's one, right? You should be done. Like, do they just automatically stop? Those babies that...
I don't know. You tell me. I don't know.
In my experience, no. But I was having this conversation with him at 3 a.m. last night.
Yeah.
Like, aren't you supposed to just be done?
Yeah.
It never ends, Carolina. It is 24/7. And I think when a new parent entered this role, to expect, I remember I have a friend right now, she has her first son, and she had a rough pregnancy, like, just needs to be cut some slack with the things she's gone through that no one should as a first-time parent or any parent. And she said, I had no idea, Nelly. You don't know until you know. That's the best way to describe it.
Right. So tell me, what is it? How do you do it? what are your survival tips?
How do I care for 3 children, a husband who's still a student, run a small business, start a nonprofit, and also try and care for myself mentally and physically?
Yeah, yeah, and show up in our community and in this world with that smile and your light, because where do you find it? How do you take care of that?
I wish I could say there was a magic pill. There isn't. I had to realize at some point that no one is going to do it for me. I have to be in charge and take charge of my mental well-being, and my self-care. And I do that by just showing up. You make it non-negotiable. Some days are hard. Like this week is back to school week for us. With everything happening, we've been home for 6 months. Like, to put that on top, you make it a priority. I message, find a tribe. And I think for me, street parking has given me that. I remember when I had life was overwhelming as usual. And I remember thinking, my gosh, I need a community. You need a community. It has helped me. I remember my first post on street parking and how welcoming and just, I was embraced with wide open arms. And oh my gosh, that is an amazing feeling. Like, I think about it and I get emotional. It is an amazing feeling when you find a community that supports you through the ups and the downs. It makes a world of difference. And that's for me that's the secret pill. Like, that's the magic. Find a community to support you through it all, and say on the tough days, say, listen, it's a tough day. I need support, and they will do just that. And set an alarm. Set an alarm to find a community.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. And on the days that it's hard, do more than nothing. I mean, street parking got it. Like, they got it right.
Yeah.
The do nothing mentality, I think, made a big difference for me, because I didn't have to be better than anyone. I just had to show up and just do more than nothing.
Yep.
Whether that was him crawling around me and me just using him as weights, or just doing maintenance. Like today, today I woke up, my anxiety level was pretty high. Like, life is busy. Mm-hmm. And it was 12 in the afternoon. There was a knot in my stomach and I hadn't moved. And I said, I can't go a week without movement. Movement is such a gift and I need it. And I reached out to a smaller group of street parking moms, all amazing moms. And I said, I need help. Like, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
And they said, just get in your space, Nelly. If it's just to move and put the weights aside, just kind of move and just be in it. And I said, okay. So I reached out to them, and I was able to come in here and just move. But it was a classic day like today where I don't know what's going on. I am anxious all the time this week. And so I needed to reach out to my community. So finding community, if street parking Facebook page is too big, find a smaller one. There are people out there who will support you on your hard days.
Yeah.
And that's it for me.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, for sure. It's crazy. I think that, the street parking community, the street parking moms, the parents, even though it's all virtual and online, it really does feel like a tribe,
Family.
Like a village.
Yeah.
that we need. So
it takes a village, and that's what they are.
Yeah.
That's honestly what they are.
Yeah.
It's awesome when I can say, listen, he's not sleeping. I don't know what's going on. And someone says, I know, I'm right in there with you. I'm going through the same thing. And it makes it rough that you just feel such relief. It's bad. It's too bad that they're also not sleeping, but you don't feel so alone in this.
Exactly.
In this journey.
Exactly. And I think that that was kind of the whole intention behind this podcast, was to just share stories and experiences so that when you're in it, like, I can't prevent any of these challenges or difficulties for anyone.
No.
But when you're in it, hopefully you feel less alone.
Alone.
Yeah, and you don't feel like it's your fault or like you're doing something, you've done anything wrong. Like, this is just how it is. It is very
It's just
difficult.
how it is.
And also, you don't have to do it alone.
No.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, to find a community where there are people supporting you, has a hand on your back and telling you, like, we're in this with you too. I don't know if you've watched the show Working Moms.
Yes.
I love that show. It is so real.
Yeah.
It's a classic example of having a community of people going through the same crazy stuff and just being there through it all.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Street Parking Moms is for me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Nelly, is there anything else that you want to share with anyone that might be listening? Any other piece of advice, or
give yourself some grace, honestly. Just give yourself some grace on the hard days where you feel like you're failing, and do not compare yourself to anyone.
Yeah.
We're all fighting the battle, whether we put it out there for everyone to see or we keep it private. I can almost guarantee you we're all going through the same thing. Yeah. So do not compare. I remember I saw a post from a mom on one of the Street Parking Mom groups, and she said, it was about a lunch that a mom had packed in her personal life. Yeah. And she said, I feel like I'm failing because I only packed so-and-so for my kid. And I'm like, no, don't compare yourself, because chances are that kid's probably not going to eat that perfectly healthy food anyway, because we all know how it goes. Yeah. We all know how it goes. They never want the healthy stuff. Yeah. But don't stress yourself out about what someone else is doing as a parent. Do the best you can, and the rest will sort itself out.
I love that.
Next.
Okay, one last question. Tell me one thing about parenthood or motherhood that you're proud of, or that makes you feel like you're on top of the world. What's your superpower when it comes to parenthood?
The joy from my kids. My daughter and I are fairly similar in personality, so we butt heads often. My second is my clone. So I'm raising two girls. They're going to be amazing women, but also very difficult to parent. But in those moments where they just sort of quiet down and just come in and just snuggle in, just, Mom, I love you. And there's something about that. There was just something about it that makes me feel like I am doing okay. Yeah. Like, I am doing fan-freaking-tastic. And even though there are hard moments, these kids are going to turn out to be amazing, because I'm teaching them to speak up and just be their own authentic self. And that's because I'm trying to be that example, right? I am trying to be my own authentic self, that hopefully my kids, my girls and my boy, can see that and say, listen, I can be me, and there's nothing anyone's going to say about that. Yeah. So when I show up and just be myself around my kids and they see me act silly, I feel like I'm doing kind of something like that.
You definitely are. Those kids are lucky to have you. Well, Nelly, thank you so much for taking the time to join me, for sharing some of your story. I feel like I could sit here and talk to you for hours. Azale, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. This was fun. Yeah. I feel so honored to be given the opportunity to share a little bit of my journey with you, Carolina, and the Street Parking Mom community. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Nelly. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you guys again soon.
They said bye, Isaiah? Said bye.